A local board wants to know how severe weather has impacted you. 7 News reporter Lexi Bruning has more on a study being done in part of Jefferson County and how you can help.
Blizzards, floods, and major winds. Over the last few years, the Watertown area has been slammed with weather not seen in decades.
You know, this has been an exceptional year weather-wise, certainly a bit of a detraction from the norm.
For some, it's caused barriers in the way people get to and from places in the city and surrounding towns and villages.
You know, sometimes that grassroots, visual understanding from local residents that traverse the roads is, infinitely more important.
To help prepare for future storms, the State Department of Transportation and Watertown Jefferson County Area Transportation Council launched a transportation resiliency study, which Chairman John Peck says will help the council gain insight on where problem areas are during and after extreme weather events.
Culverts that are maybe undersized for some of the rain events that we've had, places that have caused issues with drainage and personal property, high wind issues, if there's trees that are causing issues with transportation as well.
Peck says that's where the public comes in. A survey launched by the council asks residents to share how the weather has hurt their access to transportation or ability to travel. The council's service area is the greater Watertown area. Peck says it could help with federal aid opportunities.
We'll be able to produce a document that local governments will have in hand to be able to justify why they need help with infrastructure improvements.
You can find a link to the survey on our website at wwnytv.com. It closes October 25th. Lexi Bruning, 7 News.